Elon is a hard guy to work for and with. He's actually described himself as every day, his head is like a storm brewing. And
not a happy storm.
No.
I'm Lydia Moynihan, joined by Fox Business correspondent and Post columnist Charles Gasparino for our Reporter Roundtable, where we dig into the biggest stories of the week with a little spice as well. Reports broke about Linda Yaccarino, the CEO of X for about 2 years now, departing the company. Lots of speculation as to why that may be. And not a lot of details at this point. People who are close to her are painting it as, mission accomplished. She came in, she helped turn it around. She's done everything she wants. She's ready for the next challenge. At the same time, there's been a couple other things happening on the Twitter front. Basically, reports coming out that Twitter has been promoting some anti-Semitic content, and also a report...
Grok has.
Yes, I'm sorry,
yes,
Grok.
Right, which is the AI component of Twitter.
Yes, important clarification. I have not tried it myself. I know you can actually do conspiracy mode on Grok. Have you ever tried this?
No.
Which does not inspire one's better angels, I suppose. You can really ask it anything, was 9/11 an inside job, and it'll kind of give you what you want to hear in response to that. But the other piece as well is that, shockingly, Threads is almost as popular now as X. There's 115 million daily users on Threads. I don't know any of them. And there's 132 million users on Twitter. Blue Sky and True Social evidently are not worth mentioning because they're so much smaller. But it seems like, on the one hand, yes, Twitter is maybe better situated than it was a couple of years ago. We've seen some advertisers returning, but at the same time, there's a lot of challenges. I don't think it's like a mission accomplished moment for her.
I mean, we should point out that Elon, I guess, did some financial alchemy that produced a $40 billion valuation on it. I think he raised some money, or he paid some people off, or paid back his bank loans, where he was able to put a stamp on it as worth $40 billion. I still don't know anybody that will pay $40 billion. He paid $44, we should point out. So at least on paper, it seemed like she did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
I mean, she did a very good job.
She also worked for Elon Musk, which is not an easy feat.
That's where I think this gets to be the real story. I mean, Elon is just such a hard guy to work for and with. He's actually described himself as every day, his head is like a storm brewing. And so,
not a happy storm.
No, not a happy storm. So that's a rough job. And I bet this comes down to, how difficult it is to work for Elon Musk. Because he is, listen, let's face it, this is a guy that's, all over the place. I mean, he left Tesla to work for the White House. Tesla had a real crisis from an operating standpoint. He had to go back. He's now looking to start a third party, which Tesla investors hate.
Of course.
And his board must be going crazy on that. Like, how do we
They're not really
this?
challenging him. They sort of are happy to accede to his whims on
so
that.
Far.
I think a couple things. So one, Linda had a lot of people she brought over from NBC when she first went to Twitter.
Yeah.
A lot of them have gone. Joe Benarock, who was like her right-hand guy, who she'd worked with for decades, he was out of X months into
Never
it.
got the whole story on that.
That was always very vague.
Yeah.
No one has ever really been able to confirm exactly. There's a lot of murmurings, but not confirmed. Another piece that I think could be at play here as well, Twitter was fraught when it came to getting advertisers, I think unfairly, because everyone said, there's so much hate speech on Twitter. It's like, okay, well, yeah, there's so much hate speech everywhere on the internet.
I mean,
there's pro-Osama bin Laden videos on TikTok. Like, that's hate speech to me. So I always thought that was a very unfair allegation. But I do wonder that when these reports started surfacing about, Amazon and some of these big players returning to advertise on X, I think some of that was part and parcel of Elon being so close to the administration. And so it was almost like, if I advertise with X, that's also a way to get in with the president, stay in his good graces. That piece, obviously, that element of appeal is totally gone. So I don't know if that's also another challenge.
Well, why would she take the fall for that? We don't have all the information, and we may never get it. Usually, when Joe left...
She's extremely diplomatic.
Yeah, when Joe left, he kind of just left. I never really asked him what went down. And what did he say?
Nothing.
Okay, there you go. And I think this is
probably some NDAs, I would guess, were signed.
Yeah, and some money. And so my guess is this is the difficulty of the job and the boss. And let's just see. Let's see what the next couple of days is. But I bet you I'm not too far off on that.
On the Elon Musk point, too, kind of feels like he's his own worst enemy, because it seems like he was leaving the White House, obviously, on difficult terms, but then the promise was he was going to turn to Tesla and SpaceX and the other companies that he's tasked with running. And now it seems like this third party thing is going to derail him, because that's his new passion, seemingly. And the stock price has been a little bit iffy. There was a call he had with Dan Ives, who's a pretty funny analyst. Yeah, he's great. And Dan asked about this third party, like, shouldn't you be done with politics? And he goes, shut up, Dan.
Elon told him to shut up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I'm having dinner with Dan tonight, so I'll ask him about that.
A very nattily dressed investor or analyst.
Yeah, I know. I like Dan. He says it like it is. You know, I was listening to the Barry Weiss podcast, and I don't like touting other podcasts out there, but she had someone on.
This is the only podcast I listen to.
Yeah, well, just so you know, sometimes it's good to broaden your horizons. And she had someone on where they were talking about genius, and Elon came up, and it was the notion: do you have to be an asshole to be a genius? And then they were talking about Steve Jobs, like Steve Wozniak, I believe his name was the number 2, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, Apple would have been a much better place if I ran it as opposed to him, like if I did the day-to-day. But it wouldn't have had all these innovations if I ran it compared to him, because he was so driven. And he was like driven to the point of just working people to the bone, and and there was a personal life downside to that drivenness, which involved obviously his first daughter and things of that nature. And so you got to ask that with Elon. I mean, is there some like DNA thing here where if you're this brilliant, if you're doing all this great stuff, you're going to Mars, you're creating a transformative electric car vehicle, which is, I've been in a Tesla, it's pretty amazing stuff. To do all this stuff, should we just accept it? And should we accept the fact that he's an asshole at times? He's going to do crazy shit, like start a third party, but you got to accept it if you're a shareholder of Tesla, because you get the positive and the negative, and the positive is better because the positive is his genius that has propelled that stock. If you look at it a year, over the last 5 years, it's done very well. Let's face it.
Very volatile.
But
stock.
It's volatile like he's volatile.
You have to have that appetite and that willingness.
But the question is, should you just maybe they should just disclose it in their financials.
You're right.
We are run by an asshole who's a genius. Suck it up or sell the stock. It may be just that.
I think people have reached that conclusion.
Well, no, they haven't. People are talking about why isn't the board involved in it? There's a fiduciary to shareholders. Dan is like going crazy. And maybe, I'm going to have this conversation with Dan tonight. Maybe it's all about accepting the package that you have as the package. And,
it's a double-edged sword.
And if you can't take it, sell the stock.
In the Barry Diller book, he has a twist on the Bible verse, the meek shall inherit the earth. He says, the discontent shall inherit the earth. And there is a certain kind of trait and character quality that comes with being really successful, and it often means you don't care what people think about you. Yeah, you're just obsessed with innovating and coming on to the next thing.
Remember, it's more than that.
It's a little ADHD, too.
It's much more than that. I mean, if these geniuses are not just, they don't care about what people think about them. I mean, a lot of us, generally we go through life and we cared about what everybody thought about us, we wouldn't get up in the morning, right? But this is a different level. This is genius, and there's a self-destructive part about it. We've seen it play out with Elon, and we saw it play out with Jobs in many ways. Yeah. You got to accept it, maybe. Yeah. Maybe, I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying either you accept it when they run these public companies.
There's a lot of upside and a lot of downside.
Or you sell your stock. And maybe the thing is just to disclose it.
That's not a bad idea.
Dear Tesla shareholders, this company is run by a jerk, and just accept it, who is going to be all over the place.
Yeah.
But he's a genius.
I'm curious to get your take, because the newest thing is the obsession with the third party. He always has some sort of fixation that's sort of separate and apart from his companies, and historically that's been fine for him. Walter Isaacson writes about how he is able to jump from this project to the next project to the next project. The third party feels like a fool's errand. I think Bloomberg, I think Barry Diller, I think there were a lot of people who explored that, and if you look at the numbers, it just doesn't it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work.
You kind of saw it coming because he kind of likes the political stuff, and again, he's got that storm in his head that's looking to create.
I think it's sort of a fool's errand. It's a sort of idealistic thing to think that if you pour money into this, that somehow there will be this consensus that emerges. I guess if the New York mayoral race is any indication, it just splits votes.
There is no.
So I'm not.
There's no need.
I don't think it's.
There's no yearning for it. There was a yearning for it during the Perot years. You had literally blue collar, working class people in the Republican Party. I think there's a yearning for
it now. People feel like both parties, especially the left. There's a lot of Democrats who feel like the party's gone way too left, and so many people say they're politically homeless. I feel like that's a trendy word today. So I think there's a lot of people who would like something more moderate.
They hold their nose.
Because of the primary system.
But they all hold their nose. They all hate Trump so much.
It's the radical people on both sides who tend to get elected.
Well, first off, MAGAism is not radical. I mean, if you look at any policy sort of prescription by Trump, it's the least radical of it all. It's moderate on cuts, moderate on tax cuts, maybe not on immigration policy, but that's a whole separate conversation. Although we did open the borders like there's no tomorrow,
and most Americans
now he's closing
are very on board with his immigration.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So
yeah.
even that's not so radical. So withholding college funds to woke colleges. You think Americans
I think I'm talking more
that?
about the left, people who are sort of that never Trumper bloc. But they also look at
that would not be the
left.
That would not be the left. That would be, traditional Democrats feel increasingly out of power in a party that's where the old tail is wagging the dog.
Yeah.
AOC, Mondami, progressives, far leftists. Now, do they have? Is there a potential there to start a third party? I don't know if Elon's prescription is what they would want. I don't know exactly what they would want.
I think he thinks because he has more than 100 million followers that he can persuade all of them to get aligned with his mission, but I don't think
a lot of people follow him because they hate him
true.
too.
Yeah, followers do not mean actually people supporting your agenda. Okay, more tariff news this week, which I feel like we had a respite where we weren't talking about tariffs, which was kind of nice. But now it seems like copper, significant tariff levied on that, but pretty much everything else has gotten pushed back to August
1.
It kind of seems like we keep kicking the can down the road.
Taco.
Which isn't a bad thing.
Is that taco?
Yeah, Trump always chickens out. I don't think that's true. I mean, look at the bunker bombers. But do you think he's been able, though, because a lot of people thought, he's just doing this to extract the best trade deals possible. Do you think he's been effective in his tariffs so far, even though they keep getting pushed back? And is that maybe part of the plan?
I think the weakest part of MAGA is the tariff thing. I think it's kind of a wicked, unforced era that, I think it's just so besides the point to be just throwing tariffs on every country. And when your real objective is to slow the economic juggernaut of China, which is essentially spearheading an expansionist, military expansionist regime. Listen, do we get ripped off by all these places into one degree or the other? You can make the case. Some of them don't rip us off, by the way, that we're imposing these tariffs on. So I just think this is the weakest part. And, if you're someone like me who generally supports much of the Trump agenda, and you sit there and you say, this thing could screw stuff up. We're heading to the midterms. Unless Bessent keeps doing what he's doing, kicking the can, trying to fix these deals, so the draconian nature of them don't kick in. I mean, this could screw around with the economy. I mean, this could take a point off of GDP. This could lead to some degree,
even though
not inflation, but higher. You might not get come out in the official inflation numbers, but you'll see certain prices that are higher. Remember, official inflation numbers, CPI,
market
right?
Seems to be doing gangbusters, better than ever. So it doesn't.
It did sell off on what he was saying, and then it came back on the pause. I mean, you could track this.
Volatile.
It's volatile. When he pauses, it goes up. When he announces, it goes down. I mean, it's textbook.
That is a wrap for today. We will be back 2 weeks from now with more insights, debates, and hard-hitting discussions you won't get anywhere else.